of common today is a lot of depressions as well. You take a medication, it goes off, but the root cause is always there. It hurts the spiritualism stuff. It's like, for example, you have a bread, for example, and you have deep down, there are fungus growing, for example. You can't see the fungus on top, the molds on top, and you cannot eat it at the same time. The time that the fungus goes on top, and it's too late to eat those things. And even if you paint any of those, make it to a different color, and make it like looks like a real bread, still the poison is still there. Modern medications are, depressive drugs, antidepressant drugs, does only that. It's not going to the root cause. Okay? So I'm going to explain to you, travel with me. I'm trying to do justice in 30 minutes, but I just need the emotion. Can I have the next slide, please? The word Om, in fact, it's uttered Om, in fact. You all know Om. Everyone sits there with the chant thing, is uttering the word Om. There's no secret. Even as a kid, my mom used to just say Om, in fact. If I ask her any questions, I get scolded, in fact. But as a doctor, I was able to understand that. Next slide, please. So the word Om is actually what I understood as A, or I am, it is also called as I am for Christian believers. In fact, A is material world. Ha, it goes out. Okay? U is spiritual world. Who goes in. M is merging. And then there is silence. A, again, a material world. U is a spiritual world, who, inside. M is merging. What does Om actually mean? This is abundance. When there is a material world and spiritual world merges, it becomes abundance. And there is a silence. When there is a silence, we become God. Okay? When both of this becomes together, it becomes God. And this is called as Advaitam philosophy. Okay? In Sanskrit, it's called as Advaitam. So you become one actually. And again, A, Om, and then say Om, it becomes, every time it goes silent, you become God at every time. In the same word, I am is also the same thing. Even when, Moses went and said, when he shot the burning bushes, he asked, who said, I am that I am? God said, I am that I am. Now, O, I am, all have 432 hertz. Okay? When you utter 430 words, which I'll show you a structure called the pituitary pineal gland, which actually is shaped in the brain. That's the next slide. I'm not going to go with that. We'll go slow here. And this is what most of the classical musics are. For example, Mozart's, Beethoven's, and all of those musics. But the modern music is about 441 hertz. It doesn't actually stimulate one's brain at all. So that is why, even if you look at movies, for example, lots of genius, including his house, is listening to the classical music. They don't listen to the modern music. I listen to the classical music as well, but I'm not a genius. I act like a genius, of course, but so this is where, so it's again, simple physics. If you have several spoons put here, I take that one particular spoon of the 432 hertz, if I strike, only that frequency will utter, will vibrate. And nothing else will vibrate. So this is the only thing which actually stimulate the brain. Okay? So if you look at the Christian Gregorian chant, Indian Hindu chants, Islamic namaz reading, and Buddhism chant reading, Judaism Torah reading, and many other religious chants all have 432 hertz. Okay? Next slide, please. Yeah. So again, I've seen the West, they're doing yoga and everyone walking with a mat, and they think they've already attained philosophical that high. Actually, it's not. The word yoga comes from Sanskrit, the yoke with the oneness. Oneness is God, in fact. Right. Yogasana, asana means posture. All doing that. So what in the Western world they do is asana and not yoga. This has to merge together. Only then it is yogasana. Okay? So again, when you do meditation, you open the third eye, which is the pineal gland activation, which I'm going to talk about that as well. And asanas actually activates the pituitary glands. Okay, so like squeezing my body like this or anyway, there are certain important structures like thyroid gland, adrenal glands, fallopian tubes, testiculars, things like that, where the hormones are released. But the hormones, the master of the orchestra actually comes from the pituitary gland. So travel with me, yoga asana. Asana is for squeezing all the structures. When you squeeze these structures, sends a negative impulse to the brain, and the brain actually releases all those hormones. Okay? Whereas the spiritual part is for the pineal gland. And that is why when you have both of this, you will have the wellness. You will be absolutely, you will attain both the things what you have to attain. Now, again, going back to the word Om that I mentioned to you, merging of the material world and spiritual world and merging. If you don't have that, you will not have peace. A lot of the film stars, and all of them recently, you might have heard, overdose being, suicide. Why does this thing happen? They have $1 billion. They should be happy, right? They're not, because there's no merging there. There's only when you have only material world, ha, okay? Now there is no you and there is no M, you don't merge with God. And there is emptiness, in fact. But you have that, it'll be abundant. You'll always be very grounded, there'll be no problem at all. Next slide, please. Again, so going back to the atomic atoms here, you have the nucleus, all of this here. We are all like electrons around floating. The more spiritual you become very close to this. That is why in ancient Sanskrit, all of these are called as Atma. Atma means soul. And the inner one is called Paramatma, in fact, which is the highest soul. The more you become chanting and all of this mantra, you come close to that. Okay? And again, where I didn't stress at that word I am, that Om, in fact, it's like self-affirmation, for example. You say, when you say I am happy, I am happy, I am happy, then the brain says, no, you're not happy. In fact, you're miserable, your life is terrible. So all this moral affirmation doesn't really work. That is why they say, God is within you. I am, I am. When God is within you, you can do anything, magical work. So that is why the word Om means. A lot of people haven't actually explained all this, even myself, including when I was a kid. But I did learn all this by myself. Okay? Next slide, please. So when you go to the Paramatma, you merge together. Now, again, if you look at the brain here, it's not very clear, but don't worry. That part is called the pituitary gland. Okay? And then you have the pineal gland. The pineal gland will be somewhere here. There. That's the pineal gland. Okay? Now, ancient cultures, not just Indian civilization alone, Egyptians, Greek, Roman, all of them understood that God is inside you. It's not outside. It's not an ATM machine card. You put a card and say, I want $50, God, give me this. It's not going to give you. Absolutely, he or she is never going to give you. They all understood God is within you. This is the ventricle, this is the corpus callosum, which brings the brains together, actually. If you look at this is what they've drawn. Egyptians, Ra, in fact, that is God, actually. So this is where God sits, in fact. And that is why this part is called as temple, okay? Because they believe God gets inside here in the part called ventricle. Okay? Move to the next slide, please. Again, if you look at the Rome Vatican City, they have this structure because the pineal gland looks like this, like a cone, like a small cone. Can you explain to me how ancient civilization understood this? In Roman Vatican cities, and even the Pope having this, the cross. I'm not talking about Trump's. I shouldn't be talking about that. So, there was a Trump photograph with the Pope. In fact, it's not like that. So when you look at the real Pope having this, you will find that there's a small cone on top of it, like that. Because that is how the pineal gland is. If you activate your pineal gland, you can do magical work. Okay? Let's move to the next slide, please. Again, Vatican City, this is what the pineal gland. Remember, I showed you a small structure. Now, the pineal gland, in fact, if you were to, I think that's the next slide. Next slide, please. again. So I'm going to tell you another thing, in fact, before I go to the first reading. The pineal gland, if you take the pineal gland and dissect it, okay, you will have rods and cones. Retina has also rods and cones. So how come ancient civilizations say that as a third eye? They didn't even dissect in those days. It has the same structures, okay? That's one. And secondly, this was, I was very fascinated. In fact, when I studied neurosurgery, in fact, in neurology, embryologically, the pineal gland develops and gets completed on the 49th day of the intrauterine life. When a baby is growing, it develops on the 49th day, not on the 48th day, not on the 50th day. Exactly on the 49th day. But if you look at Puranas, Upanishads and Puranas, it says that the soul enters into the body on the 49th day of the intrauterine life. Okay? So there is a connection, right? How do they tell that there is? And in fact, you'll be surprised when a person dies, when you take an MRI of a person, you will always find that the pineal gland will rupture. That's the first structure that ruptures as soon as the person dies. I think it'll be the next slide I'll show you that time. No, sorry, go back to the slides again, please. Yeah. So that's why it's called the third eye. And when the pineal gland secretes melatonin, but also a substance called DMT. Okay? DMT. I'll tell you the function of the DMT in the slides to come, actually. So, I've written this. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay. This is the pineal gland. Okay? So if I were to draw, take a probe, for example, neurosurgically, attain all the splits from here and one here in the central line, it hits that area. If I were to go here, it'd be exactly here, in this part. It'll be exactly in this part, okay? That's where the third eye is. Now, when a person dies, the DMT is released from here, and it travels all the way to the anterior frontal alley. The soul actually escapes from here. So it seems the passage when a person dies from here to here is extremely painful when the person dies. In order to numb that pain, DMT is a natural anesthetics. God, in His own mysterious way, whatever you believe, God, the universe, whatever, in His mysterious way, releases that DMT, and once that comes in, it numbs the whole body, and then the soul disappears. And not there alone, I do a lot of sessions with Hector here, teaching his students. What is an emotional trauma of a child undergoing physical abuse and sexual abuse? What happens in the brain? I do a full course. Of course, I can't tell you now. It'll go for 1 or 2 hours. Usually, before I take the lecture, Hector will ask, "How many hours do you want?" I say, "Give me 2.5 hours." Or whatever else. So it's very difficult. So right now, at the moment, what I wanted to mention is, do you know which is the first structure in the brain that loses the blood supply as soon as the person dies? Anyone? You can give a guess? Okay. If you don't, the first structure to die is hippocampus. A structure called hippocampus. Hippocampus has memories. All your memories are stored there. So when a person dies, as soon as the person dies, all of the structures like muscles can stay for 4 or 5 days, sorry, not for 4 hours. Heart can stay for about an hour. You can transplant the heart. Brain is only 4 minutes. Okay? 4 minutes. Within 4 minutes, the brain dies. And even in the brain, the first structure the blood is not going or it's lost is the hippocampus, not the eye or other parts. Do you know why? Because that's all, again, God in His own mysterious way has done this. Because hippocampus is where the memories are. So when you are dying, for example, when you're flying, what happens to you the first 5 minutes? You'll say, "Oh, did I lock my door correctly? Did I park my car correctly? Did I put that back correctly?" So your journey is not an enjoyable one. It's painful. So that's why God in His own mysterious way knocks that thing first. He said, "Don't worry about it." So your memory is gone. "Oh, I'm leaving my mom, I'm leaving my dad, I'm leaving my loved ones." No, you don't remember anything. That's the first structure that dies, in fact. So hippocampus is gone. Okay? So that's another emphasis as well. Let's move to the next slide, please. So again, Romans, all believe, right? This is seen in the Sistine Chapel. It's a creation of God. This is God, and this is Adam, and this is creation of God. If you look at this is not my assumption. This is a doctors from Johns Hopkins went over and did a complete research. This is what you see is not God. This is actually brain. Next slide, please. So look at this. This is drawn by a neurosurgeon from Johns Hopkins that he drew that this is what you're seeing here is a brain. It's a brain structure. Okay? So therefore, God is not there anywhere outside. He's inside you. In fact, because that's what I again go back to this thing. In fact, I'll guide them. Even Christ said when when he was performing all the miracles and all that, people asked him. He said, "No, you can do it. Everyone has the power, but we don't. No one has actually talked to you that way or taught you that way. In fact, so God is within you. So that's where everything lies. In fact, it's not an external thing. He's given everything. And it's your neurogenesis should take place. Your words are extremely powerful. For example, there's a thing called neuro-linguistic programming. Every word has a mantra. For example, if you say, I want to have that, for example, you mustn't say like that. I have that already. Thank you, I have that already. So the brain starts thinking, God, this guy doesn't have that, but he keeps uttering that I have that. So I have to probably create a neurogenesis, must create neural cells connections. Neural cells connection takes about 21 days. Okay? Each neuron should connect with another neuron, okay, which is called a synapses. In each one of our brain, actually, if you were to take it out, and if you were to keep each neuron from the drum here, one neuron on top of another neuron of each person, do you know how far it will go? Anyone? Quick guess? Okay, I don't have time, so I'll jump in. I'll tell you answer myself. Each one's brain, if you were to arrange like that, will reach from the earth to the moon. Those many neurons we have, but we don't use all those neurons. So the more you say that, the track will start forming. So that is why if you want to go to a gym, for example, I want to start working out, you have to stick with it for 21 days. Between 21 days, synapses is already formed, and you can never break it. It becomes a habit. If anyone have done, whether rain or shine or whatever, do this thing, something new you want to do, gym or something, 21 days. On the 22nd day, you put your shoes and everything and you go to the gym. Okay? If anyone is not able to do that, call me, I'll give you $1,000, whatever. I'll give you a check. It's impossible. But then the second week is where the problem arises. By second week, you will all break it. The chain has almost come very close, hasn't formed yet. So that is why that is also very important. Can I have the next slide, please? Okay, again, pineal glands mentioning, it's been mentioned, Bible and all these things. You got to, read about it. It's been mentioned. Okay, next slide, please. Again, we might probably, why do we do, can I sit like this, in a normal chair and meditate? Because reason is, we have time is more, or question time? Okay, I'll keep it quick then. So, so you yourself can actually become a temple. If you connect all of these points, it becomes like a temple. Okay? See, all these have got this because beneficial rays, you have to attract the rays, in fact, the signals and all of those. Next slide, please. And these are the different chakras. All the chakras, the Muladhara, Swadhisthana, Manipura, Anhata, Vishuddhi, Ajna, Sahasrara chakra, in fact. And medically, absolutely, lumbar regions, thoracic region, this thing is cervical regions, and then this is the anterior frontal where it disappears. All of this is connected. It's all spinal cord, everything. Okay. Next slide, please. So whenever you meditate, you actually ascend up. You start thinking. When you close your eyes, you have to put the eyeballs here. When you keep like this and say the mantras, which is, you do pranama mantra, which is bringing down your, this thing, in fact, your heart rate and all of those. And then when you utter the word Om, your frequency really goes up. And at the same time, when you close your eyes and concentrate the middle part here, which is the third eye, the anterior frontal blood goes really fast. Okay? I'm going to do 1 minute training with all of you because I'm going to activate your pineal gland within 1 minute. Okay? Please look at the next slide. Okay, do you know what this picture is? Okay, I want you all, you see these 4 dots there? Just look at that 4 dots without closing your eyes. I'm activating your pineal gland. Okay? Just put those 4 dots, do not blink. No, don't look at me, just look at that. 4 dots. Close your eyes and do not open until you see an image. Okay, you were able to see Christ, right? Okay, next picture as well. I just activated your pineal gland. Now again, look at this, only that dot in the nose there for 1 minute. Don't look at anywhere, don't blink your eyes. Don't blink your eyes. Because I want the anterior cerebral arteries to go there. Close your eyes and do not open until you see an image. Can you see a color picture of this lady? Okay, that is the power of your pineal gland. I just activated that for 1 minute. Can you imagine if you were to do it 30, 40 minutes? You'd be a superhuman, right? On an everyday basis. Next slide, please. That's Lord Shiva. In fact, this is because you might think of Shiva as a doctor. He's he's got everything. He can probably do that. But I have my own share, in fact. So when I was about to graduate, my father was brutally murdered and burned alive. In fact, when I was in medical school, and that taught me a path. In fact, and after that, I had you see me, Shiva is wearing a suit. This is designed by myself, by tailor-made, because I have an ostomy pouch. My colon has been removed. I have an ostomy pouch here. Okay, and my mom died last year. It's exactly just the day after I gave my presentation, the talk like this.
IYC, mom died.
Yeah,
IYC.
absolutely. Soon after my speech went over, I had a phone call. My mother died. In fact, even amongst all this, I was able to, because spiritualism held me together. Especially my father, I loved my father very much. In fact, okay, I don't have time, otherwise I can go on talking. I wanted to find myself. I went to Rishikesh and I started meditating under a guru, and I was able to attain that. In fact, that's spiritual, and that is what keeps me grounded. And I understand because I understand a great concept there. What you see me, and what I see you all, for example, Eliezer, I see every person. What I see, or Ruby, for example, I see them. I see only 1% is visual. 99% of the Eliezer, Ruby, or my friend Hector, or Ali, anyone, 99% I cannot smell, I cannot feel. That's their personality, their character. When a person dies, it's that only that 1% dies, and we cry for that. Whereas the 99% is still with us, in fact. And that's the concept that I understood. That soul is transferable. So I should not, and that's where I had that peace. Because for 8 years I went off the course completely, grew beards, and I didn't want to practice as a doctor. In fact, I went to Rishikesh, I found myself. Now, next slide, please, with the next slide. Yeah, so spiritualism and science is like 2 rail tracks. When you see together at the end, you'll see the join together, it doesn't join. But both of those have to be there in your life in order for you to travel. Because otherwise, you cannot travel in one line. Next slide, please. I've also invented this, I take this opportunity, I've also invented, these are children with hydrocephalus, where fluid gets collected. Okay? Right now we have a shunt which gets obstructed, and you have to drill that hole and then put this tube again. This is what happens in the Western world. In Eastern world and third world countries, for example, Ethiopia, where it costs 98% of children with hydrocephalus die within a year. So I have to say, I've invented the non-obstructive cerebral shunt, in fact. Okay? So I'm developing that, and when I took it over to medical companies, medical pharmaceutical companies, they weren't keen on that because they say, hey, Siva, we're selling thousands and thousands of, this thing. Because in a child in the Western world comes to you with a certain hydrocephalus, you have to drill it at least 40, 50 times during the lifespan to drill and put that shunt every year. It gets blocked. So let's say a shunt is about $1,000. By the time the child reaches 45 years of age, it would have invariably, the company would have earned $40,000. Whereas my shunt that I found is only one, lifelong. So they're not going to have any money there. So not that alone. So I started next slide please. I started a foundation in this thing's called the Subramanian Foundation for Global Brain Health, with an objective of making this into the market, and not that alone, to distribute this free of charge to all the third world children. In fact, we started with this. I have wonderful board members like Hector, and also another friend of mine, Mr. Mike Maroney. He's an ex-US Air Force gentleman, pararescue gentleman. He came all the way to this thing. We have another gentleman who was in here, Ricardo, and all of them. I called a lot of friends at that time. Hey, I'm starting this foundation. They said, oh, what are the referendums? How much tax and all that? But these two friends of mine said, put us in, Siva, we're already there. In fact, okay? So if in any way, I know the youth force is extremely powerful, and if in any way you can help me getting funding and also do this propaganda, I'll be naturally very, very eternally graceful and grateful as well. So with my time, I don't know if I'm able to do justice. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you.
Thank you so much to Dr. Siva for giving us a lot of insight into his expertise and educating us on the way the brain works and the connections to spirituality. For our next panelist is going to be Sonia Kreitzer. She's a multidisciplinary artist, musician, sound healer, and facilitator who blends spiritual